not encouraging or advising anyone to modify their firearms. This is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Hey, what's up everyone? This video is about fitting grip modules to double stack 1911s or 2011s. Obviously the modular type with the separate grip and frame. I'll do my best to cover all the possible ways this type of grip may need fit to a frame. If you want to swap a grip on a modular double stack 1911 pistol, I hope this video gives you a good start. Let's get into it. You'll probably only need basic tools for this: calipers, needle files, maybe some larger files, sandpaper. I'd recommend 400 and 600 grit, some hex keys for the grip module screws, blue Loctite, and either alcohol or acetone for degreasing the screws and their mating threads. Some grease and Sharpie help for marking things up and identifying where interference is, and a torque driver can be helpful to tighten the grip module screws if your arm torque wrench isn't well calibrated yet. The grip module is held on by screws and bushings. There are larger bushings and screws at the top of the grip area. The flange of these bushings go inside the frame. They have a flat spot on them that comes up against this ledge so they don't rotate while you're tightening the screws. In the front of the trigger guard, there's a bushing and two screws, and they go through this tab that hangs off the front of the frame. I like to install one of these screws into the bushing with red Loctite, so that way I'm just dealing with one less tiny little component when I take these apart. Upon final installation, I put a little drop of blue Loctite on all the screws after degreasing them and their mating threads. The recommended tightening torque for the larger grip screws is 25 inch-pounds and 5 inch-pounds for these little guys right here. I got that spec from the Chile website. I'll put a link in the description to that. When you tighten the larger grip screws into the bushings, they will pinch the grip onto the frame. The front bushing and screw don't. So don't worry if you can rotate them after you tighten them up in here. Don't over tighten them. The bushings are a nice snug fit in the holes of the frame and the grip modules. And I'll reiterate this later in the video, but do not enlarge or elongate any of these holes. The grip should be fit to bring the mounting holes between the grip and the frame into alignment. In general, you're going to be fitting the grip to the frame, not the frame to the grip. I will explain what I consider a reasonable exception to that later on. You may need to fit your trigger shoe to the new grip or make adjustments to the trigger bow. The grip is the bottom of the trigger bow channel, while the frame right here is the top of it. So when you switch out a grip module, you may need to do some fitting at the trigger bow if it's being pinched between the grip and the frame. Usually it will occur here at the back of the bow, where most trigger manufacturers put these fitting ears. I would recommend taking material off the top of the ears. You may need to fit your existing mainspring housing to the new grip if the new grip didn't come with one. There may be magazine catch fitment or compatibility issues. Gen 1 mag catches look like this. The latch is outboard, and there needs to be this groove in the grip right here. Gen 2 mag catches look like this. The latch is inboard, and it locks on a feature inside the trigger cutout right here. If you get a new grip, generally I'd say just go ahead and get a new mag catch from the same manufacturer for it. There may be interference with magazine base plates, especially if you add a mag well. Your trigger pre-travel and over-travel might need to be adjusted once the trigger is in the new grip. The sear spring may need readjusted. Adjustments might be needed around the grip safety or beaver tail and the mainspring housing where they meet up right here. If you are fitting a raw aluminum grip module and mainspring housing, I would highly recommend you get them anodized after fitting is completed. That's what I did on this one. I would argue that the increased hardness and wear resistance of the aluminum oxide surface layer is needed at key interfaces with other components like the mag catch, trigger, magazine, and inside the mainspring housing. Anodizing the part will make it grow as that oxide layer forms. For standard mil-spec Type 3 hard anodizing, each surface grows about 1/1000th of an inch. So keep that in mind when you are setting your clearances and fitting the grip module to the frame. Always do safety and function checks of the pistol after you work on it at all. A video where I show these will be the first link in the description because it's the most important. After fitting is complete, there may be any manner of blending and contouring that could improve the aesthetics and comfort of the newly mated grip and frame. I won't be covering that in this video. Likely, if you're swapping a grip module on an existing pistol, the frame will already be finished and that would be compromised if you did any blending. In the description, I will link to some videos of mine where I show that type of blending if you're interested. Take a close look at the grip and the frame. Make sure there aren't any nasty burrs from machining or goobers from the injection molding process if it's polymer. On polymer grips, look out for the place where they inject into the mold. On this Prodigy grip, it's at the top here. I have already cleaned this up with a file, but there was a big nasty chunk of plastic sticking up proud of this surface. Just give everything a good once over and clean it up. You can focus in on problem areas that pop up later during the fitting. The first order of business is to get the grip module slid up onto the frame. The big thing here is that these inserts or pads need to slide up into this pocket in the frame. The width between these inserts right here may be an issue with the width of the frame from here to here. The width of the grip module from here to here may be an issue with the frame width from here to here on the outside of the pockets. This is generally less of an issue with polymer grips because they can flex quite a bit. Aluminum and steel grip modules may need a more precise fit between these features. Come to think of it, I don't ever remember adjusting the width here of a polymer grip module. They flex enough. The front to back distance of this insert may be too great to fit in between here and here. That's unlikely. I don't think I've ever seen that happen, but it could. If the grip module won't slide onto the frame, you can start taking measurements of the features on the slide in the frame. You can, look and go, okay, I got 971 here and I got 967 here. Okay, that's not going to be the issue. There's clearance there. Measure like this, 0.642, and then measure these inserts, 0.625. Okay, that's not an issue. You can Sharpie up the features of the frame in question down in this area and up around here and look for marks that show up when you try to put the grip module on. You can also put a thin layer of grease around these parts in here or even on the frame, and then when you try to slide it up, you can see where the grease gets pushed out of the way. Once identified, adjust the needed areas of the grip module. I like my grip modules to be a nice slip fit. They freely slide on and off, but they're not loose. This is a nice fit. I don't need to touch it. I measured the narrowest spot between the pads and the widest spot in the frame right here. And then there's a minimum of 0.04 of an inch of total clearance, so 2 thou per side. Maybe that gets you an idea of the kind of fit that I shoot for. Once you start sliding this grip up, it can run into this tab next. I've seen this channel be too narrow this way, or it's filled with mold flashing or debris from drilling the cross hole. You can get in there with a needle file and open it up or clean it out as needed. Once the grip module is up in place, I like to see that this pad and this pad are contacting this area right here in the frame. You can see that down within this pocket there's even a little raised area in the center. You don't want the grip module to be contacting here on this part of the frame, so it leaves a gap between this pad and this surface in the frame. I think they should be in contact where the bushing comes through and the screw is tightened up against it. A lot of the times you can just slide this up, pinch it in until those pads contact, and then see that you still have a little gap there on both sides, and I do. You can also measure how deep these pockets are by measuring this, subtracting the two numbers and dividing by 2. They're usually around 50 thousandths deep. You can then measure between the pads and then between the grip ears, subtract those two measurements, divide by 2. And what you're looking for here is that the distance from the front of this pad to this part of the grip module is thicker than from here on the frame down to this pad. You can also, put grease or Sharpie around this area on the frame, put your grip on, pinch it and drag it off and see where the contact marks show up. Once the grip can slide up onto the frame, we need the bushing holes to line up. As I said before, do not open up or elongate these holes or this one. We need to adjust the grip module until it allows the holes to align properly. If I did that in this case, it would leave a gap here and here, which looks like absolute dog shit. Generally, these holes right here will line up pretty easily, but on these MJD grips, the profile of this part of the grip module is a little tight in the pocket on the frame. So I need to remove a little bit of material around this edge until it can go all the way into the pocket. Just do this very gently with a needle file. It doesn't take much. I can see where it was interfering, and it was kind of right here on this side. And on this side, this was just a little bit too wide for the pocket. So I'm just going to take a tiny bit of material off. It won't take much. I can slide it right in there like that. You kind of heard it click in. I'll probably remove a little bit more. Let's look at this Prodigy grip. It's hanging up right here. You can see that there's some plastic protruding forward that's not allowing the front of the trigger guard area to go up into this pocket. You can also kind of rock the grip back and forth and look for the pivot point. That may help you identify interference. You can see that when I rock this back and forth, it's about this point right here. All you would need to do is take a little material off this face and this face. This mold flashing that I mentioned earlier would have also spaced it off of this surface and prevented this front hole from lining up. So now that I can get the front of it all the way up in, you can see that the rear is not high enough, right? You can see the frame bushing hole is above the bushing hole in the grip. I kind of work my way front to back, right? So in this area, we have issues with this profile. We might have issues with the slot in the trigger guard right up here. We might have issues around this place or where the injection site for the molding was. And the next place I look is right here. And you can see I have a gap between the frame and the grip module right here. But I can't see anything in that gap, so that's good. There's probably not anything in there preventing the rear of this grip module from coming up further. Sometimes this surface can be a bit wavy. After the injection molding happens and the part cools, there are internal stresses that may get released when they machine out the trigger and trigger bow pocket. This can cause the part to warp. There may be high spots around this area right here preventing the grip module from going up far enough. If I run my file across this, you can see that it hits right here on this outside edge and then in two little ridges along the center. You could coat this top surface with a thin layer of grease and put it up in here and then see where the grease gets left in this pocket and remove material as needed. Working our way back, we get to these inserts, and the top surface of this insert right here may be hitting on the bottom side of this frame pocket ledge before these holes line up. This is where I'll take a thin layer of grease and just put it up on top of that ledge. Slide the grip module on and make sure that no grease got left here or here. And you can see in my case, I didn't have contact. If you do have interference there, you're going to need to take some material off the top of these inserts. Use a file with a dead side so you're not gouging into your grip module as you file the top of it like this. You can also Sharpie up this surface to make sure that you're taking material off the top of it evenly. This trigger bow channel ledge is also parallel to this, so you can just directly measure this at the front and the back and make sure you get the same measurement, and also that way you can keep track of how much material you're taking off. The next place I've seen interference is along the tops of these curves. The top of this might be coming up against this little ledge right here before the holes line up. You can use the grease trick here as well, but it's actually just pretty easy to see if you have a gap between those surfaces or not. If there is interference, I like to use a half round needle file. I can use the flat side for the convex surfaces, and I can use the curved part of it to get down in the corners and remove material. I can see that this back edge of the grip module is actually slightly overlapping this edge in the frame. It's coming over the top of it this way towards the back. That's a bit odd. I'm not going to take material off this back edge yet. Let's look a little bit closer. If you look through this hole, you can see that the hole in the frame is a little bit forward. And if we look back here, this little crescent of the frame that we can see is actually coming up the back. That means my whole grip module needs to go forward. This could be hanging up here, 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 or it could be hanging up on the front edge of this insert and this edge of the pocket in the frame. I have a gap here. I have gaps here. I have a little gap at the top of this curve, but it looks like the corner may be contacting. What I'm going to do is Sharpie up that front edge, put my grip module on, kind of push it forward and pull it down off of there. And I'm not seeing any contact where I marked up the Sharpie. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some material off of these corners right here where I saw there was no gap. This grip has a little bit of flex to it. I can even just push the whole thing forward and get this hole to move forward in relation to the one in the frame. So I'm pretty sure this corner on both sides is what's preventing it from coming forward. So I'm just going to remove a little bit of material there. All right, that is all it took. You can't see that sliver of frame in there anymore, and you can see that all the material of the frame we can see in this hole is just around the bottom. The last area is here, where the back of the grip meets the back of the frame. In my experience, that's where these MJD grips interfere with the Chile frames. I already checked the relationship of the top of this insert with this ledge in the frame by grease. I know I don't have contact there yet. I can look here and see that I don't have contact around this curve. And if I do the pivot trick, you can see that it's pivoting about the two most fore and aft points. It's not pivoting or hitting on anything in between. So I need to remove material from the grip here or the frame right here and here. And that brings us to the exception I mentioned earlier. The last MJD grip module I fit to a Chile frame, I started removing material from inside the trigger bow channel. It's really hard to remove it evenly all the way along this length and then up around the front of this curve. So what ended up happening is my whole trigger bow channel kind of had a backwards tilt to it like this, and the trigger bow tilted back with it. That tends to make the shoe bind up in the slot, because instead of contacting evenly across this surface and this surface, now it's pivoted back at an angle and it's contacting on this top forward corner and this back rear corner. I saw where that was going and I stopped and opted to take material off the frame instead. Even if you could take material off evenly here all the way along this channel and up around the side, you would still need to lower this surface of the trigger shoe channel to keep the trigger level. I know this grip module is going to stay on this pistol, so I'm okay with removing material from these surfaces of the frame. If you think you might swap your grip module out later, I wouldn't do that. It probably wouldn't cause any other issues than leaving a shitty looking gap back here. If you're fitting the grip to an existing frame that is finished, I wouldn't recommend taking the material off here. You may just have to start taking it off the back areas right here of the grip module and be aware that your trigger bow is probably going to tilt back a little bit and you may need to do a little fitting to your trigger. If you do need to refit the trigger shoe, it likely won't be much, but I would take material off the bottom of the shoe to bring it down and level out that bow. In my case, as I mentioned, I'm going to remove material evenly across these two surfaces with a flat file until the rear bushing holes line up. As I'm doing this, I need to stop and check that I don't start hitting here on these curves and I don't start hitting here on the top of this insert. Because if I just keep taking material off this, but I'm contacting somewhere else, then I'm just going to end up with a shitty looking gap between here and here. Okay, so let me show you this. I just took another couple passes off and actually a little gap has opened up back there. So I think at this point I am interfering somewhere else. Looking closely around this edge, it looks like I may be contacting just right there on the top on both sides. Just did the grease check, no grease there, so I'm going to take a little bit of material off here and here. All right, the grip went up a little bit further and I once again have a gap on both sides. So now I can go back to removing material back here. All right, grip is in place. It's nice and tight. The bushings and screws are all in there. There's no gap here. There's no gap between the backs here. And we're looking good. So one thing I do when I'm fitting these is, if anything, I'm going to err on the side of the grip module being a bit low. When I squish that up in there, you can actually see just a tiny little sliver of the frame peeking up in the bottom of that hole. And what that does is, as you tighten the screws, it pulls the grip module up into the back here. I have dealt with loose grip modules before. That means the hole in the grip module was oversized. And I got it all the way up, so there was no gap here, tightened down the screw, and then as I shot it, it worked itself back down like this, and the gap opened back up. On this one, I got my material removal done here and here. I needed to do a little bit more cleanup around this profile on the top, and actually these corners here and here were proud, and so the grip module was rocking back and forth at this point just a tiny bit. So I swiped some passes across there, and you can see where was low and where was high. I tried to cover all the fitting possibilities here, and certainly all the ones that I've seen firsthand. It was a lot, but the most common things you're going to see are the width between here and here needing adjusted. This is more likely to need done with aluminum or steel grips. The profile around here may need a little bit of adjustment, or even just taking some flashing off. The little profile here might need some work. And then removing material from the tops of these inserts is another common thing. If you did remove material from these inserts, they may just be carbon or alloy steel. I would recommend refinishing them in some way, cold blue, paint, or a thin film of oil before reassembly. So if you are fitting a polymer grip module, and let's say you made some adjustments and now you have, file marks across some surface, right? And you can tell there's a pretty obvious difference in the finish there. Take some 400 grit sandpaper. Get rid of those filing marks. So you just have 400 grit scratches. Hit it with some 600 grit. Now you can see there's quite a bit of a difference in the finish between where I just sanded and the material that I didn't touch. Take a rotary tool with a cotton buffing pad, run it at low RPM, don't put any polishing compound in it, and gently run it over this area in a couple of different directions. Don't apply a lot of downward pressure. That kind of blends in and evens out the finish a little bit. So when I get these grip modules, I go through and I take the mold line off, and then I clean it all up and make it look pretty. And you can see that I've done that here. Looks pretty good. It blends in. It blends in the marks from filing or sanding pretty well. If you're fitting an aluminum or steel grip, after it's all fit and maybe after you've done some blending and contouring, I would get it media blasted, then finished. Anodize the aluminum, nitride, or DLC on the steel. Stainless steel grips can be left raw, but be careful. The stainless steel they're made out of is likely a free machining martensitic grade like 400 series, and it isn't as corrosion resistant as you might think. If you're fitting a new grip to an existing frame that's already finished, you're unlikely to do any blending because it'll compromise the finish. If your frame is still raw, blending generally happens back here at the grip and the frame and the beaver tail area to prevent hot spots and make it comfortable in the web of your hand. All right, that wraps this one up. I hope this was interesting or helpful to you in some way. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if I missed something. Please share your 2011 grip fitting tips, tricks, experiences, and struggles in the comments so that I and others can see them and learn from them. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you next time.